Welcome to the Checklist for Survival, a series of short educational videos dedicated to helping owners and managers in the quick printing industry benefit from the wealth of statistical data gathered over the years in this industry. These videos have been produced by John Stewart, president of QP Consulting, Melbourne, Florida. He is the author of one of Quick Printing Magazine's most popular columns titled The Quick Consultant, a column he has authored for more than 25 years. Stewart is one of the early members of the National Association of Quick Printers, and he has received numerous awards of distinction including Quick Printer of the Year from both Quick Printing Magazine and NAQP. His consulting and speaking engagements have taken him to virtually every state in the US, as well as to Canada, Brazil, Australia, Ireland, and Great Britain. He has published more than 40 key industry research studies in the past 25 years. Subjects covered have included operating ratios and benchmarks to industry pricing, binary options, wages and benefits, digital color, along with a host of other studies and reports. His mailing services pricing studies are extremely popular both with dedicated mailing companies as well as printers who offer mailing services. Stewart, along with fellow industry consultant and author Larry Hunt, is also the author of the industry bestseller titled Print Shop for Sale. This 275-page book, now in its third printing, offers readers a step-by-step guide for establishing a fair market value for your printing firm or one you are looking to buy. For additional information about John's latest studies and reports, visit the website www.quickconsultant.com. That's www.quickconsultant.com. Now, let's move on to the video titled Sales per Employee.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where or when you're viewing this film. First, a couple of housekeeping details. First, I'd like to point out that my hair is not as gray as it actually looks probably on the film, and I'm going to blame this on the lighting and the camera people. Number two, you'll notice there's probably a typewriter behind me. Well, there is a typewriter behind me, and you're going to be laughing right now. I still actually use a typewriter to type labels and envelopes. I will tell you that the wife of one of my employees came in the other day and looked in my office and saw the typewriter, and she just started howling, thinking how old-fashioned I was. What can I say? Anyway, let's move on to the topic of today's video, and that is sales per employee. I'm going to be going over 4 or 5 subtopics for you, and I'm going to be showing you a number of slides to stress how important sales per employee is. But obviously, before I get into this subject too deeply, we need to define sales per employee. Sales per employee is as simple as gross annual sales divided by the total number of employees, full-time and part-time. We need to take the part-time employees and convert them as best we can to full-time equivalents, meaning if we've got 2 part-time employees each working 20 hours a week, they would total to 1 full-time employee. An employee who's working on average 30 hours a week, that's a 3/4 of an employee. So you're going to count up your employees, your typesetter, your 2 press operators, your bindery person, your part-time delivery person, and you're going to come up with a number. And we want the number plus the decimal point within reason. We're not interested in carrying out to the tenths or the thousands, but I think to the full-time, part-time employees is good enough. You'll see some examples in a second. Okay, now, we can do it annual, we can do it monthly. Some of the franchises prefer to have sales per employee expressed as a monthly number. I deal with annual numbers, and every number that you're going to see from here on is going to be on an annual basis. Now, who do we count? Now, that's an interesting thing. You'll notice that sales per employee never mentions wages or salaries because we don't care. We're not talking about wages or salaries or what these people are paid. In many cases and for many reasons, we'll have employees working at a company who are not paid. They're not paid directly, or in fact, in the case, it could be a mother, a mother-in-law, a daughter, a son, father-in-law, lots of reasons, lots of situations where they might be working in the company, helping to produce the product, but not receiving a salary. It doesn't matter. So long as that person is involved in helping to produce the product, we're going to count them. As you're going to see in a few minutes, we can have one company producing $800,000 in sales with 5 employees, while another company with the same product line and mix will take 8 employees, 9 employees to produce those same sales. There's a vast difference in productivity. Now we're talking the same mix, we're talking 4-color process, 1 and 2 color, digital color copies, the same mix for both companies. One company will do it with 5 employees, the other company will take 8 to 9 employees to do it. Now, in all the studies that I produce in this industry, there are 2 studies for which I am closely involved with, more so than any others, And in all my studies, I do tend to track sales per employee. One of them is the financial benchmarking study, which is published on behalf of NAPL, NAQP. And then the 2011-2012 quick printing industry pricing study. Both these studies, as well as many of the other studies I produce, all track sales per employee, because regardless of what the basic study is about, we consider sales per employee one of the most important ratios to measure. So you'll see this, you'll see these graphs inside. We're dealing with sales per employee. Okay, I'm going to use the 2011-2012 quick printing industry pricing study to go over most of the key ratios from this point on. And I'm going to be taking a look specifically, and you'll get a much better chance to view these charts close up. We're going to be looking at 5 different charts that are going to help to illustrate sales per employee and some of the various facets about this industry. We're going to be looking at 5 specific graphs that will help to illustrate from the most general statistics to the most specific statistics regarding sales per employee. The first graph I want to go to is our 2010 sales histogram. And all we're looking at now is the fact that this represents the total number of printers in the $300,000 to $400,000 range in sales, all the way up to $3.5 million and greater. This represents the industry as we know it. Average sales in the industry runs between $800,000 to $1 million per shop on annual sales. But we certainly also have companies that are doing $1 million, $1.5 million, $1.3 million, etc. This is what we're going to be looking at today. Now, interestingly enough, sales per employee really doesn't vary that much based on annual sales volume. Now, we're going to take a look at the second slide in our series. It's called Key Facts About the Quick Printing Industry in 2010. Well, as I mentioned before, the average sales size of the average company in this industry is approximately $1 million. No big deal, 900 million, 1.1 million. Medium size, the median size firm is doing about $685,000. Average owner's compensation and median owner's compensation varies very little in this industry. Right now, at present, based on 2010 figures, it's between 10.7% and 10%. That's 10.7% of annual sales. That's what a single individual owner is taking home. We're not going to get into that right now because this seminar is about sales per employee and not owner's compensation. Interesting, and we'll get more specific about this in just a minute, we have sales per employee. The average sales per employee in this industry is $123,500. Median sales per employee is $118,600. Now, hopefully, before we've even gotten to this point, you jotted down some numbers and calculated your own sales per employee. If you haven't, you actually ought to stop the video right now and calculate your own. Be sure to count all the employees, and remember, that includes you and your wife and everybody else in the company, regardless of whether you're receiving a salary or not. Okay, we're finished with this slide. Now let's move on to the next slide. Now we're going to take a look at our third slide in this series. It's called the top versus bottom quartile performance slide. And what I'm basically showing you is the differences between the bottom 25% in this industry and the top 25% in this industry. Just to give you an idea of the broad range in profitability, sales per employee, and overall success in this industry. The average sales of the top most profitable companies in this industry, that top 25%, they happen to average $861,000 in annual sales. There's nothing secret about that number and nothing concrete about it. It's just that it happens to be the top performers are averaging those sales. Now you'll notice that the bottom 25% in terms of profitability are doing $1,021,000. And once again, as I mentioned, the top are averaging $861,000. Owner's compensation, we're dealing with shocking numbers. As high as 24.6% of sales, down to minus numbers. And believe me, that minus number goes far below that minus 1.3%. It goes down to minus 10, minus 15% of sales. You can't survive very long with negative sales in that area. Most important thing though, notice that the top 25% in this industry average a sales per employee of $134,600. And the bottom 25%, $105,700. I will tell you, it goes a lot lower than that in this industry. Okay, now back to the most important slide in this series, and probably the most important slide in this entire presentation, and that's our sales per employee histogram. As I mentioned earlier, the sales per employee in this industry has a dramatic range from the lowest, and we're talking companies that actually report in the $40,000 to $70,000 in sales per employee, on up to our average numbers, which are 120. This is 120,000. This is 130,000. This is 140,000. The good news, the refreshing news is that there are a number of companies, not as many as we'd like, but that are reporting sales in the 150,000, 160,000, 170,000 range and higher. These numbers are very attainable, but you've got to make some hard decisions when you're running your business. Let's move on to the next slide in this presentation. This is sales per employee and historical trends. Like many other numbers in the industry, we expect, at least in terms of profitability and sales per employee, we look for these numbers to continually improve. You'll notice that the green bars, these green bars represent the averages. The brown bars represent the medians. It's no surprise that back in 1996 and 1990, in year 2000, 1998, etc., we were down in the high 80s to low 90,000s per employee. Okay, as we moved to 2006, we finally broke. Actually, 2004 to 2006, we finally broke that $100,000 level. In 2010, the average sales per employee, as I reported before, was $123,500. Median was slightly lower at $118,000. This number, if you expect to maintain profitability and survive in this industry, your sales per employee has to reach these levels and beyond in order to succeed. You cannot make excuses and rationalize why your sales per employee is so much lower than the average in the industry. Recognize that it's also quite possible to exceed this range and be literally way off this graph. Okay, let's now move to the conclusion on this video on sales per employee. First of all, how do you fix SPE, sales per employee? How do you improve it? Well, to be honest, I'll tell you what, it's not easy, it's not painless, and it's not inexpensive. Improving SPE can be done in 3 or 4 ways. The first and probably the most obvious is terminating 1 or more employees. For years, I've been saying it's really easy to terminate the bad apple in a company. Everybody knows who the bad apple is. Your employees know who it is. You know who it is. That employee ought not to be very difficult to terminate. The real painful thing is terminating an employee who, through no fault of their own, is simply an excess employee or more employees than you need to produce that product. You need to look around at other other members of this industry, those that are reporting sales per employee of 140, 150, 160,000 in sales per employee, and recognize that you too can do it. But it's not going to be easy. Do you really need those 3 press operators? Do you need that full-time bindery person? What about the proofreader in the desktop publishing department? Do you really need these individuals? Many companies have proven that you don't. In any event, that's one of the choices that you have. Updating and acquiring more productive equipment. If you're trying to hold on to equipment and you keep justifying and say, I can't afford to buy new equipment, it may turn out to be a situation where you can't afford not to buy that new equipment. A floor model folder over a tabletop folder, or a new digital copier, anything that will help improve your productivity. And I will tell you what, that oftentimes buying a piece of equipment will allow you, in fact, to terminate an employee. That's not an easy thing to say, believe me. I recognize in today's economy that's a very painful decision to make. But the fact is that a piece of equipment costs you probably 1/3 to 1/4 of what that employee is going to cost you, certainly over a 2 to 3 year period of time. Third, and also an option, but not an easy option in today's economy, is raising prices. Don't tell me that you simply can't raise prices. Other companies around that are selling even commodity products raise their prices on a regular basis. It can be done. It can be done in a painless fashion, but you must recognize, be prepared to do that, and take the criticisms when they come. Low SPEs, by the way, and this is going to be a controversial subject, low SPEs have little to do with President Obama, the Tea Party, the Federal Reserve, government regulations, or the current state of our national economy. Everybody wants to blame those items when in fact the fault lies much closer to home, and that's with you, the owner of the business. You're the one that controls those things like sales per employee and profitability and cost of goods and payroll expenses, not the federal government, not healthcare costs. So I think it's something that you're going to need to deal with in your own company and look for the solutions in your own company. In fact, I will tell you, if the economy was booming and things were roaring, there would still be companies out there reporting sales per employee in the $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 level. And those numbers simply are not acceptable in today's economy. Low SPEs have been a problem in this industry since the 1970s. It was the late 1970s. We started tracking it then. And I will tell you, the one most critical element that has affected sales per employee for the past 30 plus years, and that has been increasing payroll costs. Payroll costs as a percent of sales have gotten completely out of line in this industry. So while cost of goods and overhead expenses have remained almost identical for more than 35 years, sales per employee and tied with payroll costs have continued to rise. This is a problem that's facing our industry. It's a problem that must be dealt with, and it's your option and your decision today to make those improvements. Okay, remember too that a low SPE, in my opinion, a low SPE is like a low-grade temperature. I may not be able to tell you right now what's causing it, but I can tell you something is wrong. And when I come and analyze a company, and I visit a company or they call me on the phone and they say they're doing $650,000 in sales, and the next thing out of their mouth they say that they have 9.5 employees, I calculate that in my mind, and I know that's a little bit under $70,000 in sales per employee. I don't need to see that company's financial statements to know there is something desperately wrong with that company. You need to calculate your sales per employee, and if it is below 105 or 110,000, you need to make some immediate steps to improve that number now. Anyway, I want to thank you for viewing this, taking the time to view this video. If you need any further information, you can go to my website, www.quickconsultant.com. That's www.quickconsultant.com, where you'll find some additional charts and additional information on how to improve sales per employee. So once again, thank you very much for viewing this first video. Thank you.